Chapter 17 of Freckles. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Freckles by Gene Stratton Porter. Chapter 17, wherein Freckles offers his life for his love and gets a broken body. To reach the tree was a more difficult task than McLean had supposed. The gang could approach nearest on the outside toward the east, but after they reached the end of the east entrance there was yet a mile of most impenetrable thicket, trees big and little, and bushes of every variety and stage of growth. In many places the muck had to be filled to give the horses and wagons a solid foundation over which to haul heavy loads. It was several days before they completed a road to the noble big tree and were ready to fell it. When the sawing began, Freckles was watching down the road where it met the trail leading from Little Chicken's tree. He had gone to the tree ahead of the gang to remove the blue ribbon. Carefully folded, it now lay over his heart. He was promising himself much comfort with that ribbon when he would leave for the city next month to begin his studies and dream the summer over again. It would help to make things tangible. When he was dressed as other men and at his work, he knew where he meant to home that precious bit of blue. It should be his good luck token, and he would wear it always to keep bright in memory the day on which the angel had called him her knight. How he would study, and oh, how he would sing! If only he could fulfill McLean's expectations and make the angel proud of him. If only he could be a real knight. He could not understand why the angel had failed to come. She had wanted to see their tree felled. She would be too late if she did not arrive soon. He had told her it would be ready that morning, and she had said she surely would be there. Why, of all mornings, was she late on this? McLean had ridden to town. If he had been there, Freckles would have asked that they delay the felling, but he scarcely liked to ask the gang. He really had no authority, although he thought the men would wait. But some way he found such embarrassment in framing the request that he waited until the work was practically ended. The saw was out, and the men were cutting into the felling side of the tree when the boss rode in. His first word was to inquire for the angel. When Freckles said that she had not yet come, the boss at once gave orders to stop work on the tree until she arrived, for he felt that she had virtually located it, and if she desired to see it felled, she should. As the men stepped back, a stiff morning breeze caught the top that towered high above its fellows. There was an ominous grinding at the base, a shiver of the mighty trunk. Then directly in line with its fall, the bushes swung apart and the laughing face of the angel looked on them. A groan of horror burst from the dry throats of the men, and reading the agony in their faces, she stopped short, glanced up, and understood. "South!" shouted McLean. "Run south!" The angel was helpless. It was apparent she did not know which way south was. There was another slow shiver of the big tree. The remainder of the gang stood motionless, but Freckles sprang past the trunk and went leaping in big bounds. He caught up the angel and dashed through the thicket for safety. The swaying trunk was half over when for an instant a nearby tree stayed its fall. They saw Freckles' foot catch, and with the angel he plunged headlong. A terrible cry broke from the men, while McLean covered his face. Instantly Freckles was up with the angel in his arms, struggling on. The outer limbs were on them as they saw Freckles hurl the angel face down in the muck as far from him as he could send her. Springing after, in an attempt to cover her body with his own, He whirled to see if they were yet in danger, and with outstretched arms braced himself for the shock. The branches shut them from sight, and the awful crash rocked the earth. McLean and Duncan ran with axes and saws. The remainder of the gang followed, and they worked desperately. It seemed a long time before they caught a glimpse of the Angel's blue dress, but it renewed their vigor. Duncan fell on his knees beside her and tore the muck from underneath her with his hands. In a few seconds he dragged her out, choking and stunned, but surely not fatally hurt. Freckles lay a little further under the tree, a big limb pinning him down. His eyes were wide open. He was perfectly conscious. Duncan began mining beneath him, but Freckles stopped him. "You can't be moving me," he said. "You must cut off the limb and lift it. I know." Two men ran for the big saw. A number of them laid hold of the limb and bore up. In a short time it was removed, and Freckles lay free. The men bent over to lift him, but he motioned them away. "Don't be touching me till I rest a bit," he pleaded. Then he twisted his head until he saw the Angel, who was wiping muck from her eyes and face on the skirt of her dress. "Try to get up," he begged. McLean laid hold of the Angel and helped her to her feet. "Do you think any bones are broken?" gasped Freckles. The Angel shook her head and wiped muck. "You see if you can find any, sir," Freckles commanded. The Angel yielded herself to McLean's touch, and he assured Freckles she was not seriously injured. Freckles settled back, a smile of ineffable tenderness on his face. "Thank the Lord," he hoarsely whispered. The Angel leaned toward him. "Now, Freckles, you," she cried. "It's your turn. Please get up." A pitiful spasm swept Freckles' face. The sight of it washed every vestige of color from the Angel's. She took hold of his hands. "Freckles, get up!" It was half command, half entreaty. "Easy, Angel, easy. Let me rest a bit first," implored Freckles. She knelt beside him. He reached his arm around her and drew her closely. He looked at McLean in an agony of entreaty that brought the Boss to his knees on the other side. "Oh, Freckles," McLean cried, "not that! Surely we can do something. We must. Let me see." He tried to unfasten Freckles' neckband, but his fingers shook so clumsily that the Angel pushed them away and herself laid Freckles' chest bare. With one hasty glance she gathered the clothing together and slipped her arm under his head. Freckles lifted his eyes of agony to hers. "You see?" he said. The Angel nodded dumbly. Freckles turned to McLean. "Thank you for everything," he panted. "Where are the boys?" "They are all here," said the Boss, "except a couple who have gone for doctors, Mrs. Duncan and the Bird Woman." "It's no use trying to do anything," said Freckles. "You won't forget the muff and the Christmas box, the muff especial?" There was a movement above them so pronounced that it attracted Freckles' attention, even in that extreme hour. He looked up, and a pleased smile flickered on his drawn face. "Why, if it ain't me little chicken!" he cried hoarsely. "He must be making his very first trip from the log. Now Duncan can have his big watering trough." "It was little chicken that made me late," faltered the Angel. "I was so anxious to get here early I forgot to bring his breakfast from the carriage. He must have been hungry, for when I passed the log he started after me. He was so wabbly and so slow flying from tree to tree and through the bushes I just had to wait on him, for I couldn't drive him back." "Of course you couldn't. Me bird has too amazing good sense to go back when he could be following you," exulted Freckles. exactly as